Have you ever felt a confusing internal resistance? A sense that as you find your footing, others seem determined to pull you off balance? It's a deeply unsettling experience, feeling criticized for growing stronger, for setting boundaries, for simply becoming more you. When your inner world feels like a battleground, or when external dynamics suddenly shift in bewildering ways, turning to the wisdom of Jung offers profound insights. He helps us understand the hidden forces at play, both within ourselves and in our relationships. Today, we're going to explore how these unsettling feelings, particularly when faced with certain challenging personalities, are often linked to a crucial phase in your personal journey. Understanding this through Jung's lens will not only validate your experience, but provide a clear path forward. Join me as we uncover these dynamics and gain clarity on how to protect your evolving self. This unsettling dynamic often stems from a deep-seated vulnerability within the other person, a fear that their carefully constructed persona, their outward mask, is being threatened. For someone whose entire sense of worth is precariously balanced on maintaining an illusion of superiority and control, witnessing another individual finding their own strength is not just inconvenient, it feels like an existential threat. Jung spoke extensively about the ego and how it navigates the world, but he also pointed to the deeper reality of the self, the true center of personality, which encompasses both conscious and unconscious aspects. The narcissist's fragile ego is often rigidly identified with their persona, leaving little room for genuine growth or connection. They project an image of strength, but it's a facade designed to keep their own perceived inadequacies and the contents of their shadow hidden, both from themselves and others. When you begin your process of individuation, that journey of becoming the unique, whole person you are meant to be, integrating aspects of your own, unconscious, and aligning with yourself, you naturally start setting healthier boundaries, expressing your authentic needs, and withdrawing our energy from unhealthy dynamics. This is the moment that triggers what's been termed the power inversion crisis for the narcissist. Your increasing psychological strength, your budding sense of self, separate from their influence, disrupts their need to control and feel superior. It highlights, perhaps unconsciously, their own stagnation and inner emptiness. Their greatest fear isn't necessarily your departure, but your empowerment, while still potentially within their orbit, because it makes their carefully curated reality unstable. In response to this perceived threat, the narcissist often launches what feels like a final assault. This is a desperate attempt to regain control and restore their illusion of power by undermining your progress. This assault manifests largely as a war of psychological projection. Everything they fear about themselves, aspects of their own shadow, their weakness, inadequacy, deceitfulness, or inability to cope, is aggressively projected onto you. Suddenly, you are accused of the very things they are doing or feeling. If they feel out of control, they'll accuse you of being controlling. If they are being manipulative, they'll call you manipulative. It's a defensive maneuver from their ego, an attempt to externalize their own unacceptable internal state and make you carry their shadow burden. Understanding this mechanism described by Jung is crucial. It helps you see that the intense criticism, the gaslighting, the attempts to make you doubt your reality are not truly about you. They are desperate projections stemming from the other person's internal crisis triggered by your growth. They are attacking your individuation process because it threatens their fragile system. They are trying to pull you back into the old dynamic where their ego felt secure, even if it was at your expense. Recognizing these projections for what they are is the first step in disarming them. It prevents you from internalizing their shadow material and allowing it to derail your path towards yourself. This is where paying attention to your own inner world becomes paramount. Your dreams can offer powerful insights during this time, often presenting symbols that reflect the dynamics at play or point towards your own strengths and resources. Sometimes moments of synchronicity might occur, offering timely confirmations or guidance as you navigate this complex psychological terrain. Paying attention to these messages from your unconscious is like having an internal compass guiding you through the storm of external chaos and projection. It reminds you of your own truth amidst the barrage of distortions. This period is intensely challenging, but it is also fertile ground for significant psychological integration and strengthening of the self. This psychological maneuvering is deeply rooted in the manipulator's fear of losing control, a control that often compensated for their own fragile sense of ego. When your individuation process starts, when you begin to align more authentically with yourself, discarding old restrictive patterns, it directly challenges the dynamic upon which their ego structure was built. They see the emergence of your true strength, the development of a healthier persona that no longer fits the mold they created for you, and it feels like an existential threat. The strength shaming is an attempt to push you back into a more compliant, less defined state, a state where your voice was quieter, your boundaries porous. They label your newfound confidence as arrogance because confidence signifies independence, a movement away from reliance on their validation. Calling boundaries coldness is a projection of their own fear of abandonment and a refusal to acknowledge your right to self-preservation. It's an attack on the healthy boundary setting necessary for growth. When strength shaming fails to immediately collapse your developing self back into the old subservient persona, the manipulator shifts tactics to nostalgic manipulation. This is a cunning appeal to sentimentality, often dredging up idealized memories of a past that, in reality, was likely fraught with unequal power dynamics and emotional distress masked as connection. They long for the old you, not out of genuine affection for who you were, but because that version of you was easier to manipulate, less aware of their own shadow, less connected to their inner truth, and therefore, more controllable. They are trying to invoke a kind of psychological time travel, hoping to trigger your own unconscious longing for familiarity, or perhaps activate dormant archetypes of the rescuer or the compliant child within you. By highlighting shared history and shared symbols that once held power, they aim to create cognitive dissonance, making you question your current reality and your reasons for changing. Remember how good things were when you just went along with things? Or, you used to be so much softer, so much more loving. These phrases aren't about love. They are attempts to leverage your past persona against your emerging self. It's crucial to understand that this nostalgic manipulation is a projection of their own inability to adapt and grow. They are stuck in a loop, often acting from a place governed by their own unintegrated shadow aspects, unable to genuinely connect with another person's evolving self. They rely on the unconscious hooks they believe they still have in you. This is where the work of individuation becomes your greatest defense. Recognizing these patterns, understanding that their criticisms and nostalgic appeals are not reflections of your worth, but rather reflections of their internal state, disarms their power. This is precisely the kind of complex psychological terrain that the work of Carl Jung illuminates. He understood how the ego constructs defenses, how the shadow operates, and how the journey towards the self involves navigating these external and internal pressures. Paying attention to the guidance from your own unconscious through dreams, noticing meaningful synchronicity in your environment that confirms your path, and understanding the symbols that appear to you are vital practices during this time. They provide an internal anchor against the external storm of manipulation, grounding you in your own truth and reinforcing your connection to your emerging self. But when the nostalgic manipulation fails, or when your boundaries become too firm for them to simply guilt-trip you back into the old dynamic, they unleash their final, most insidious weapon, manufactured vulnerability. This is when the seemingly sudden health crisis, the unexpected financial collapse, or the overwhelming emotional breakdown occurs. And crucially, it happens precisely when you are gaining strength, when you are beginning to embody your authentic self, when your path of individuation is becoming clearer. It's a direct counterattack against your progress. They are not genuinely vulnerable. They are performing vulnerability. This is a calculated tactic designed to weaponize your deepest human capacity for empathy. Your natural desire to help, to nurture, to respond to suffering is expertly exploited. Their facade of fragility is a trap, pulling you back into the rescuer persona. They are comfortable with you playing, diverting your energy away from your own healing and growth. Think about it. Just as you feel strong enough to stand on your own, to reclaim your life from the shadow of their influence, they present themselves as utterly broken. "I don't know how I'll cope without you," they might lament. Or, "This illness has hit me so hard I have no one else." This isn't an authentic expression of need. It's a strategic deployment of their own fabricated weakness to reassert control. They understand, perhaps only unconsciously, but effectively, that your empathy is a powerful force, and they aim it squarely at derailing your individuation process. This tactic is a desperate attempt by their fragile ego structure to maintain power. born from the fear of losing control over you, which they perceive as an extension of themselves. They project their own internal chaos onto the situation, creating an external crisis that mirrors the unintegrated chaos within their own shadow. This manufactured vulnerability is a form of emotional blackmail. It preys on the deeply ingrained human tendency to respond to distress, often activating archetypes like the wounded healer or the rescuer within us, making us feel obligated to step in, even at great cost to ourselves. It makes you question your decision to step away, stirring up guilt and doubt. How can I leave them when they are so sick, broke, sad? Your own ego, perhaps still carrying remnants of the old dynamic or a persona built around caretaking, can get tangled in this. This is why paying attention to the subtle signals from your deeper unconscious is so vital. Do your dreams feel heavy or warning-like after these episodes? Do you notice patterns or synchronicity in your environment that confirm your intuitive sense that something isn't right? That this vulnerability feels performative? The symbols that appear in your inner landscape and external world see eye and offer clues. Carl Jung dedicated his life to understanding these complex dynamics, the interplay between the ego, the shadow, and the unconscious, and how they influence our relationships and our journey toward the self. He knew that recognizing these patterns, these strategic maneuvers hidden behind a mask of suffering, is crucial for liberation. Your journey toward yourself requires you to differentiate between genuine human need and manipulative performance. It requires you to honor your own need for safety and boundary, recognizing that true compassion doesn't require you to sacrifice your own well-being for a performance. When faced with this fabricated vulnerability, the natural reaction is to revert to the old patterns, the rescuer role, the established persona of the caring, capable individual who always swoops in. This is what they want. They want to pull you back into the narrative where they are the helpless victim and you are the indispensable savior. This prevents you from fully stepping into your own strength, into the embodiment of your true self. It keeps you tethered to their chaos, preventing your full individuation. Understanding this tactic for what it is, a strategic manipulation, not a genuine plea for help, is the first step in disarming it. It requires you to look beyond the surface, beyond the dramatic presentation of suffering, and see the underlying mechanism at work. This isn't about denying compassion to someone truly in need. It's about recognizing when compassion is being twisted and used against you as a weapon to maintain control and stunt your growth. Your empathy is a gift, but like any powerful force, it must be wielded with wisdom and discernment, protecting yourself from those who seek to exploit it for their own ends, keeping you trapped in their shadow rather than allowing you to step into your own light. The path of individuation demands this vigilance, this ability to distinguish between authentic connection and manipulative performance, even when the performance is cloaked in the guise of desperate need. This is the ultimate test of your boundaries, your commitment to your own healing, and your connection to yourself. This tactic preys on deeply ingrained archetypes within us, particularly the caregiver or rescuer archetype. When they fall into manufactured crisis, they are tapping into an ancient pattern, a human impulse to help others in distress. Resisting this pull feels profoundly unnatural, often triggering guilt and anxiety. It feels like you are abandoning someone, which challenges the persona you have cultivated, perhaps the image of yourself as a good, kind, or reliable person. Your ego grapples with the dissonance between this self-image and the act of saying no to their desperate plea, even when that plea is clearly designed to ensnare you. This internal conflict is precisely what they exploit. They need you to feel bad about upholding your boundaries because that feeling weakens your resolve and makes you more susceptible to their demands. They want you to believe that your refusal is cruel, that it reflects poorly on your ego, and that their suffering is a direct result of your lack of help. This is also where the shadow comes into play, both theirs and potentially yours. Their self-sabotage is often an expression of their own destructive shadow, a part of their unconscious that acts out their inner turmoil in ways that damage themselves, but primarily serve to control others. For you, resisting their pull might mean confronting your own shadow aspects, perhaps the need to be needed, a fear of rejection if you don't conform, or a belief that your worth is tied to your ability to help others. Disentangling yourself requires shining a light on these hidden parts within yourself, understanding why their manipulation hits such sensitive spots. When they ask you to compromise your boundaries, to lend money you can't afford to lose, to neglect your own well-being to tend to theirs, to sacrifice your values. They are specifically targeting the foundations of your autonomy. Each boundary they manage to break chips away at your sense of self and reinforces their power over you. It's a psychological erosion designed to make you feel powerless to resist them in the future. They are trying to dismantle the structure of your independent ego, the part of you that asserts your needs and limits, by making you repeatedly violate your own rules. This is a direct assault on your path towards individuation, the process Carl Jung described as becoming the unique and whole person you are meant to be, separate from collective norms and the expectations of others, especially manipulative ones. The chaos they create through self-sabotage acts as a thick fog, obscuring your vision of reality and making it harder to see the pattern. They are experts at creating drama that demands immediate attention, pulling you away from your own life, your own goals, and your own healing. Your unconscious might be trying to send you messages about the truth of the situation through dreams, filled with symbols of being stuck, chased, or drained. Pay attention to these inner signals. They are important guides when the external reality is being distorted. The feeling of obligation they cultivate isn't genuine, it's manufactured through crisis. They make you feel responsible for their well-being, even for the consequences of their own destructive choices. This places an immense burden on you, one that is impossible to carry without sacrificing your own sanity and stepping further away from your true self. Recognizing that their distress is a tool, not just suffering, is crucial. It's a performative suffering aimed at eliciting a specific manipulative response from you. They aren't seeking genuine help to change their patterns. They are seeking a rescuer to maintain the status quo where they can continue to exploit your empathy and energy. Every time you step back into the rescuer role, you reinforce their belief that this tactic works and you validate their dysfunctional persona. You are essentially feeding the manipulative aspect of their shadow while neglecting the growth of your own self. The journey of individuation requires you to choose your own path, even when it means walking away from someone who is actively trying to pull you back into their darkness. It requires differentiating your healthy desire to help from the unhealthy dynamic of being manipulated and controlled. It means accepting that you cannot save someone who doesn't truly want to be saved, especially when their plea for help is a trap. This realization can be painful for the ego, especially if being a rescuer has been a significant part of your identity or persona. Ultimately, discerning manipulative distress from genuine suffering is crucial for your own individuation, a core concept explored by Carl Jung. This journey requires acknowledging how another's manipulative persona and hidden shadow can ensnare your own ego in a rescuer role, pulling you away from your authentic self. Understanding the power dynamics rooted in the unconscious, perhaps glimpsed through analyzing dreams or recognizing telling symbols and moments of synchronicity in your life, helps illuminate this path. It's a challenging realization, but embracing it is essential for growth. Consider, how has recognizing these psychological dynamics shifted your perspective on difficult relationships? If you're a deep thinker interested in navigating the complex landscape of the psyche and understanding these archetypes and processes, be sure to subscribe and activate notifications for more insights. Remember, you are not broken, you are becoming.